Coming up this week on Sporting Journal Radio, Hall of Fame angler and guide Tom Neustrom will join us to talk about the future of walleye fishing in Minnesota. Did you guarantee him a walleye Saturday morning?
Oh, it's hard. I never do that. I never can do that. I can't guarantee anything.
The politicians do it all the time. Come on, Tom.
Yeah, I know. They can do that.
Erik Osberg tells us about an insane crappie bite in Otter Tail Lakes Country.
I think this might be the best crappie bite I've ever been on in my life.
And Joe Henry tells us what conditions are like at Lake of the Woods.
Almost as far as you can see, and it was open water.
We're not just a radio show anymore. Hunt, fish, listen, repeat. Broadcasting from the Camp Grilling Studios, this is Sporting Journal Radio. Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. That's a new personal best pike here. Now here's your host, Bret Amundson. Welcome to the show. If you walleye fish in Minnesota or any of the states around it, we got a great show for you. Stick around because we're going to talk about the future of walleye fishing in Minnesota and also what you might want to do on opening weekend here to catch more fish and put more fish in the boat. Tom Neustrom, he's a Hall of Fame angler, guides out of the Grand Rapids area. He's going to join us. We had a great conversation with Tom to talk about walleye fishing in Minnesota, where it's been, where we're going, and he's got some tips to help you catch more fish. We're also going to get the latest on Lake of the Woods and what the ice conditions and the river conditions are like up there coming up later in the show. And Erik Osberg, he texted me the other day. He goes, we were just on an insane crappie bite. He's going to tell us where he was finding these big crappies and how he was catching them coming up in just a little bit. That's Dan Amundson over there. Dan, who are our sponsors this week?
Yeah, our sponsors this week are Bale Heights Campground and Resort on Devil's Lake. Plan a trip to Devil's Lake at haybaleheights.com. Otter Tail Lakes Country. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com. Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital. Plan a trip for this summer at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. Camp Grayling. Catch the Grand Slam, lake trout, pike, grayling, and walleye. Fish Camp Grayling in Saskatchewan this summer. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. Mid-Migration Outfitters. Plan a trip for this fall to hunt waterfowl out of heated 10-man pits and comfortable lines. Learn more at midmigrationoutfitters.com. And Prairie Sportsman. Watch episodes anytime at the new Prairie Sportsman's YouTube channel.
Nice job, Dan.
Thanks.
Very good.
I was going to say the new season is underway, but it's not.
We just wrapped it up. Although you could still see new episodes on your local PBS station, so check your guide or go check out that new YouTube channel, just like Dan said. Well, by all accounts, it sounds like most areas are post-spawn right now for walleyes. So fishing could be a little bit interesting out there, maybe be targeting some males. Tom has some more information about that. Dan, you're going to be headed up to Leech, it sounds like?
Old Lady Leech, ice-free as of last week, so we'll see what that lake has to offer. It's always kind of hit or miss, but you know, huck a jig in a plastic around and see what wants to eat.
Is that what you're going to do mostly?
Probably, you know. Everyone goes to spot tail shiners up north, and I don't know if we're going to be able to find spot tails. We'll see what bait shops have them, if any. But live bait's great. Live bait works, but I have more fun fishing plastics. I know you have found good success on them. You're starting to get into it more, and that's been something we've been doing on the river for a long time now, and now we're realizing why wouldn't it work on lakes, and it does. And you don't get your fingers cold digging into the bait well, and you don't have to pay $8 for a dozen shiners. You pay like $4 for 8 plastics. That lasts you like 3 years, and you catch a bunch of fish.
Yeah, I'm all about the plastics now, but I guarantee you I'm most likely going to have a bunch of minnows in my boat too, probably fatheads.
It's a good safeguard.
Yeah, for opener this weekend, but I'm liking the plastic game a lot more and more. I'm going to be on a local lake, and that's probably what we'll be doing is just dragging jigs, probably in shallower water from all accounts, maybe pitching jigs, maybe try to find some places to hit some pockets here and there, things like that. So I'm excited. It should be a state holiday. I know it's...
I think it kind of is.
Yeah, I guess it kind of is.
I guess.
Governor's Fishing Opener, of course, this weekend. Tom Neustrom is guiding the governor, so we're going to talk to Tom about his plans for taking Governor Walz out in just a little bit. I'm not done turkey hunting yet, and I know we talk about ticks and Lyme disease
quite a bit on this show, but we feel like it's a pretty important topic, and we've got a great interview next week here on this show with Dr. Bill Rawls, who is a doctor who has Lyme disease, actually overcame Lyme disease, and he used some different remedies. So we're going to find out what he recommends to battle Lyme disease and what to look for, how to get it diagnosed. He answered a lot of questions. You know, we've tried to get a doctor on the show to talk about Lyme disease, and it's been real hard. So we look forward to having him on talking from a medical perspective for somebody that's studied medicine and has been a practicing doctor for a long time. So he'll be on next week to talk about it. And I've been finding more and more ticks. I've been pulling so many ticks off of Tiny. So if you're out there in the grass, walking through the woods, if you're still turkey hunting, make sure you're using some sort of protective clothing or maybe a permethrin wash with your clothes. We've been mentioning it the last couple of weeks. We went out and hunted down in Missouri and Nebraska in the new Sitka Equinox Guard system. Went down there with Corey Loeffler and hunted hard, crawling through the grass, through the woods. There were ticks all over. We had no ticks on us while we were wearing this clothing. It's not the cheapest, but it is. It's good stuff. It works. Dan, you used it.
Yeah, and I just made a post about it the other day, and it's like having the confidence to be able to sit down and lean up against a tree and know I don't have to worry about ticks. I don't have to worry about the bugs. All my focus is now on turkeys or whatever. Like there's something about that, and it's worth it. Ticks are nothing you want to mess around with. If you got to pay a little extra for a little bit of protection, you'll be thankful for it in the long run when you've actually learned what tick illnesses are all about.
We're talking about your health and your health moving forward for the rest of your life. And it's an important prevention. And I mean, if I told you that you had to spend a little bit more money to stay healthy for the rest of your life, I mean, I know some of my buddies, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care about that. But most of you probably would. And this stuff is worth. In fact, I got into turkey hunting. I think this week, 10 years ago this week, I shot my first turkey. I didn't grow up turkey hunting. Got into it, really enjoyed it.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you very much. And then actually got out of it for a number of years because turkey numbers weren't the best in my area, but I really didn't want to deal with ticks. I was even going out and taking photos in the spring, doing a lot of wildlife photography. I was getting so many ticks on me that I was like, man, I'm not liking this. But with this gear and permethrin, it's been a welcome change. Yeah, there's a little peace of mind when you get that stuff.
Huge
when you go out there. Man. And do it. Happy birthday, Dan, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Celebrated a birthday this week and shot your turkey this week.
Sure did.
How'd that go?
Yeah, I was telling you off air, it was as far as turkey hunts go, it was kind of boring. And I didn't call once. They didn't really decoy, but good scouting, I guess, and knowing where they're going to be, pattern them in a couple days, and had to go up north to go do it, but got to hang out with some friends. It was a really fun weekend, and to punch that tag, which was looming over my head, and I still had one from last year that I didn't fill. I was like, I can't go 2 years without filling one. And after we're done here, we're going to eat some delicious turkey, so I'm pumped about that. So glad to get that done, but it was you can see the bird there. It was good to get that done. Good to punch that tag, and happy it's over. Now time to go fish.
I'll give you credit, Dan, because I went on an 8-day trip with Corey. We had 12 tags to fill. We filled a few of them, not all of them, but we filled a few of them. And just, I don't know how many gigs of footage that I got of turkey hunting, and I couldn't get a turkey kill on camera. And it just drove me crazy that I came home without that, because I was so jacked about it. I think I talked about it on the show. I was just jacked to go down and get some amazing, turkey beating up a decoy type footage. I've never been able to capture that. And I thought for sure we were going to get it on this trip. And we just didn't. The turkeys were tough, and they were seeing us. We were running and gunning, so we weren't in a blind. We were, stalking these birds, hiding in the trees, and just didn't get it. You went out by yourself, shot your turkey, and filmed it.
Yeah, say that's 2 turkeys dying on film this year now.
That you got.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't get any more.
I guess we'll let the viewers decide what that says about that.
Sending you next time, for sure. Well, congratulations, by the way. And the other thing to be excited about, Dan, is we're less than a month away from going to Saskatchewan.
Can't wait. It still doesn't feel real that we're going.
Tasman Lake Lodge, we're going to head up there. June 14th is when they're going to open camp, and we're going to be up there for it. And then we're going to stay up there for a couple of weeks and do another season of Tasman TV. It'll be Dan's first trip up there. What are you looking forward to the most, Dan?
Figuring out if the place is actually real or not, because it's one of those places that just doesn't feel legit. But no, seeing obviously it's legit, but that I want to know what it feels like to hold on to a rod with a fish fighting that hard. You know, I've caught a couple big fish, but I mainly walleye fish, so that, you know, people give walleyes a bad rap for not fighting, and I disagree with that. They definitely do fight, but not as hard as a 50-pound lake trout. And will I catch a 50-pounder? We'll find out, but it's going to be fun regardless. You know,
it's kind of interesting. In a way, you could almost compare the way walleyes and lake trout fight. I mean, lake trout, they're not going to be like fighting a smallmouth bass or a big pike or something like that. They're so muscular and they're so strong, and they head for the bottom, and they just try to basically rip the rod out of your hands like this. You'll be kind of holding on for dear life like this, and it's just some people have kind of compared it to, you know, fishing in the ocean for big fish, whether it be halibut or something like that. But it becomes a kind of a battle of the wills to some extent. And there's definitely some fun moments to it. They'll peel line, they'll roll. The smaller ones will get up near the surface and start spinning around. And, you know, we don't even like catching the small ones, because it's just
why would you?
It's just a pain.
You have what you have, yeah.
But the pike fishing too is world class up there, and you know, I caught a 50-inch pike up there last year when I was up there, and we had a client catch a lake trout in 2019. The last year we had guests up there that was about 72 pounds. So it's gonna be a special place, and we'll be filming up there. And there are still some openings. If you want to come up, you might even get on Tasman TV. You can watch that now on the Tasman Lake Lodge YouTube channel. Find out more at tasmanlake.com. All right, we come back. Hall of Fame angler Tom Neustrom will join us.
Devil's Lake is legendary, and this summer has been legendary for walleyes. Don't miss out. Call Bale Heights Campground and Resort today to book one of their modern cabins on East Bay. The cabins are furnished with a full bathroom, kitchen, and all the amenities like high-speed internet, and are clean following CDC guidelines. Staying at Bale Heights gives you full access to a private boat launch, fish cleaning station, and beach area. Learn more at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. Plan your trip to legendary Devil's Lake today.
Well, the annual holiday known as the fishing opener here in Minnesota is back once again. And the governor's fishing opener is it back? Is it kind of back? We're going to talk about that a little bit and just talk about the Minnesota fishing opener and fishing in general in Minnesota, too, with somebody who's been a part of it in this state for a long time. Tom Neustrom, Minnesota Fishing Connections, MN Fishing Connections. He's a guide out of Grand Rapids. He guides on more than 35 lakes and spends a lot of time on a lot of different committees and advisory councils and DNR Roundtable and MinFish. So I got probably a lot of questions for you, Tom. So I appreciate you giving us some time here today.
Oh, terrific, Bret. You know, it's always good to share with people and the listeners, you know, a little bit about stuff that we do. And, you know, you don't always read about it in the paper and you don't always hear about it on TV or whatever, but you know, the public has a right to listen to some of the things that we provide and help to get accomplished.
You know, honestly, on a side note, I think that's one of the biggest struggles that I see in the outdoor industry, particularly in a state like Minnesota, where the outdoors are so important to not only the residents of the state, but the non-residents that come here, the economic impact, the tourism impact that fishing in particular, but also hunting, has on this state. Yet I feel like the majority of media outlets don't give it ample time to explain some of the things that's going on. It's almost like a throwaway for them. You know, more and more newspapers have gotten rid of their outdoor writers. There's a couple left in the state. You know, I do this outdoor show. I know you do some outdoor radio. I feel like sometimes it's hard. You know, I would hit up a lot of radio stations and be like, hey, I've got this little outdoor radio show. I've been in radio for a long time. I build it so it's a no-brainer for you to carry. It's simple. It's free. And they're like, well, we got this other outdoor show. I'm like, yeah, fantastic. Let's have two of them. You know, it's important. Or do you want to play another country song that gets played 500 times, you know, a day? I feel like it's sometimes hard to get outdoor messaging out to the people that hunt and fish around here. So I think that's one of the reasons I really like Min Fish, because I think we need an organization like that that stands up for outdoorsmen or anglers in this case for the state to help get some of those messages out. So anyway, just a little side rant for you there here on the show to get started, because I think there's so many people that like to hunt and fish, yet sometimes it's hard to find that content unless you go to YouTube or something like that.
Oh, and I think that's an important message, Bret. Min Fish was established to represent anglers. We don't really have a voice. Anglers don't have a voice. Sure, you've got different individual groups. You've got Walleyes Unlimited. You've got Smallmouth Alliance. You've got all these different things that at least I would say they're smaller groups. But we wanted to organize something that had some really key people to represent the anglers and move forward on a lot of these issues. And it's not just the fishing, but there's other things that we provide too. It's we're working on getting some money for fixing up hatcheries and public accesses. And I wish I had a ton of time to tell you about some of the stuff that's been accomplished already, especially on a public access side. We got some federal grant money, and we actually got a couple of the accesses already fixed and redone up on the Winnie Cutfoot area. And, so it's kind of one of those things that we want to represent anglers in every possible way we can and just be a voice for them.
I didn't realize, and honestly, until I heard this issue brought up by Min Fish, I didn't realize that we had so many lakes that either didn't have a public access or had a public access and some serious need of repair. Yeah,
it's, when you spend a lot of time up north, as I do, but and travel a lot and use a lot of accesses, I think that was one of the important part that we tried to bring forward to even the federal government when we were able to access that grant money to fix these accesses. It's a start. This is just a start in a big project, and we want people to understand, and we want legislators and that to understand that, we need the funding to get this done. Bret, I want to throw something at you a little bit, just real quick. A lot of people don't even know how many people fish in Minnesota. Of the 5.8 million people live in Minnesota, 25% of the population goes fishing. And they spend $4.4 billion in fishing every year. So, you think to yourself, economy-wise, how important fishing is to the state of Minnesota. And I don't think, I don't think the public gets to really know those numbers and realize, but 25% of the people fish.
And I don't think the public realizes that. And I don't think sometimes our legislature and our elected politicians realize how important fishing is to this state. And I think they forget that. And I think they need to be reminded of it constantly.
No, I agree. And it's the outdoors, Minnesota is absolutely, I would say in the country, sure, you have different model things with elk and mule deer in Montana and Idaho, and some of the fishing in Michigan and Wisconsin is pretty good, but it's not like Minnesota. We have, I would say, the best diversified fishing of any state in the country, except, maybe like Alaska or something, but in the lower 48, I think we do. So
I've done quite a bit of traveling, usually for hunting trips, but I've gone to a number of different states where they either don't have hardly any lakes at all, or the lakes that they do have are a lot of private lakes, or they're pay to play, or there's no public access for them. People in Minnesota sometimes also, and this goes to the anglers, they don't always realize how good they've got it here.
Well, they don't, but, I don't know. I think that the expectations and, you got a lot of things running around too. You got AIS stuff and, the invasive species things and trying to fight against some of that. But all in all, the quality of the water that we have in Minnesota really attains to real positive fishing, reproduction, and they're just things that, like you said, I don't think the legislators understand how important fishing is to Minnesota. Right. Maybe someday they will. We always hope for it, and I think Min Fish's job is to push in that direction to make them understand that if they invest in us, we will help to provide them with the best quality fishing that can be attained anywhere. And I think we have grit fishing, but I think there's more work to be done, and hopefully we at MinFish can help to attain that and get it done.
Well, clean water is such an important issue, and it's something that even people that don't fish should be concerned about, because it affects everybody. And you brought up reproduction, and I wanted to ask you about that because two key points were brought up by MinFish in this summit last week, and that was public accesses and also stocking and more funding for the stocking programs in the state. And there's been numbers thrown around about 5% of the fish that get caught are stocked. Brad Parsons brought up the fact that stocking will be done where it makes sense. How important do you feel that the stocking program is in Minnesota? And are there things that can be done to make it more successful, or is it always going to be a struggle for those stocked fish?
I think it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I understand that the DNR wants these lakes to take care of themselves and reproduce on their own, but the stocking has to happen and has to be applied in areas where the numbers just aren't there. What about all these lakes with these little munchy little northern pike, and you're going to put a bunch of fry in there, and they eat them like gumdrops, and it's just. We look at different stuff like that, and it's kind of important to understand that you have to have these lakes stocked, and even raising the size of the fish. If a lake has got a real northern pike problem, then why aren't you putting fingerlings in those lakes like you used to? Don't pull the fingerling stocking back because you feel that the fry is more cost efficient. Well, it might be cost efficient, but if you're not getting any bang for the buck by putting them in there, because they're getting eaten so fast, then what are you accomplishing? And it takes years. It takes years for this stuff to show its face. So I think those are some of the things that we're hoping to have another meeting with them maybe later in the year. And I think one of the issues we're going to talk to them about, it's going to be the stocking. But I also have respect to them that if a lake can take care of itself and reproduce well and keep their numbers up, then that's something that they need to really look upon, not to be managing in an aggressive way and continue stocking. And I don't want to get on the horn on this deal, but you got to remember that if you continue to stock fish in a lake that has an overabundance of fish right now, say walleyes, okay, you're not doing it any good. You're just pushing the button the opposite reverse way. And I think that those are the complicated things that not only the public doesn't understand. It's taken me years. I mean, I've been on these committees for 16, 18 years. It's taken me a long time to realize it. But there are some lakes that shouldn't be stocked continuously because they're at capacity now. So there again, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. So
yeah, well, there's a reason some of those guys, they went to school to be a biologist, and I didn't. So there's gonna be quite a few things that they know better than I do. But one thing I think a lot of people are getting on board with, and I'm curious to know what MinFish, if MinFish has a position on this, and that's lowering the walleye limits in the state of Minnesota, or keeping them on a lake by lake basis, or what do you think the future is for walleye limits?
Brett, I think I'm supportive of the 4 walleye limit with the 1 over 20. I was, and I have been for about 6 years. But I think at times people, I don't know. It's been a very controversial subject, and everybody on MinFish board doesn't agree with the 4 walleye limit. It's one of those things that we talk about and we discuss it, and we don't put it up for a vote. But I think when we look at the pressure, we look at electronics, we look at all the things that are happening underneath the surface of the water. I think we have to look at limiting ourselves of what we take. Sometimes you look at all the large lakes except for maybe Winnie and Cass. They're all 4 now and have been 4 for quite a while. And they're very successful. The tourism is good. The fishing is good. In fact, is better in some places. And so therefore, even with the biological part from some of these guys that say, no, it's never going to change anything. You take a third of the limit away, and you tell me that it's not going to provide more fish in the next 5 to 20 years, I don't believe it. But there again, I'm not a biologist. I'm like you. I don't have a PhD, but
So this is kind of a personal question. You got a few gray whiskers there. I'm wondering if you had those before you joined the Mille Lacs Council or the Mille Lacs Committee, or if that's just been a stressful time.
I think it got grayer. No, it is frustrating. It is frustrating. I don't care what anybody says or thinks. It's frustrating because we can't do anything anymore. We're stuck. We're in a hole and we're stuck. And they have done everything that they can do, the fisheries people, and it's a shared fishery with the tribes. And I think the fishing is still very, very good, but the lake is not as healthy, I think, as other lakes are, like a Leech or a Winnie. They have year classes of fish that disappear, and they don't even know why. They don't even know where they go, and they don't even know who's eating what. But the problem is that I don't know how long it's going to ever take for that lake to come back to where it was, if it ever does. And I think they're being very careful with it, and they watch it. And it's a great catch and release lake, phenomenal. But it's just there's people. The one thing about walleyes is people like to catch them, but they like to eat them too.
Yeah.
If you give people enough to eat, you don't have to give them big limits, but if you give them enough to eat, a couple fish to take home each day when they go fishing, I think it's enough. And I just wish that Mille Lacs would go into a different direction, and where you can go, instead of one fish from 21 to 23, is there some year classes that are coming up that can be exploited a little bit, where maybe we could take 2 fish home with us to eat. I don't know. I think that's going to be a significant thing in the future, and how the management of that lake takes place. Tom Heinrich is a phenomenal manager from the DNR. He is. He was up at Lake of the Woods for 30-something years, and I think he's doing a great job, but I think there's only so much you can do, and I think it's frustrating to a lot of us on the committee, and it's okay. That's what committees are about sometimes, is trying to get the things accomplished and get them done, but boy, I'll tell you, it's been a tough ride.
Yeah. I was surprised that it was going to be a 21 to 23 inch slot once again. And I'm wondering, is it because there's an abundance of fish in that year class, or is it because you can only keep one and there's a good amount of fish in that year class and you can get a fair amount of meat off a 22 inch walleye? Or what's the reasoning for the 21 to 23?
Well, it's the numbers that are there, but they've got to be getting diminished, because if you're for 3 years you're accessing that size fish, it's got to get diminished. There is some younger fish coming up, but they're not as strong as that year class. So it's going to be, it's going to be interesting to see where these new year classes come up and how many numbers are in them. I mean, I think it's totally uncertain at this point, but I think, these real successful walleye lakes like a Leech or a Winnie or a Rainy, Red Lake, of course, I think when you look at having 5 to 6 year classes of fish coming up behind your harvest fish, that really shows you that, you've got something coming up that will really, be the future of that lake. And right now, I'm not seeing it, not with the test net results. I'm not seeing it, but there are a couple year classes that are strong, but not like the 2017. No.
Now, on paper, it's easy to compare Mille Lacs to, say, Red Lake. Obviously, it's 2 different bodies of water, and I think Mille Lacs I think its proximity to the Twin Cities metro area, I think that lake just gets hit so hard from anglers because of its proximity to a major population area. But what differences and similarities between Red and Mille Lacs have you seen, and is there anything that's worked on one or the other that could work vice versa, or do you just have to look at them as 2 separate bodies of water?
That's an easy one, Bret. 2 separate bodies of water. Red Lake is the perfect storm. If you were going to design a lake that had all the, everything for reproduction. I would say a similarity of a lake like Red Lake would be your design. It's got the rock, the habitat. It's got all the spawning habitat, good reproduction, good food. They've got perch, shiners. They've got everything that a top-end walleye lake needs to reproduce fish on its own. Sure, was it stocked heavily, back when it got exploited? Yeah, but once it came back strong. And now you got 4 to 5 to 6 year classes of fish in there. So again, it's the perfect storm lake. Mille Lacs is different, more complex, a lot different, more species, more questions. How come the perch population isn't coming back? Well, I think they're getting eaten, more than anything. I think before they can get to be a bigger fish, I think they're getting eaten. But I know it's, and that's my perception. And I think it's a more complex fishery. They're two different fisheries.
Lake of the Woods benefited from that slot limit that they put in. I think that's one of the best things that could have happened to that lake. But I think Lake of the Woods gets the benefit too of having so much water up in Canada. That it's in a different classification for walleye lakes in Minnesota. It's just an unbelievable fishery. But we're blessed with a number of great walleye lakes, thankfully, here in Minnesota. So you have a lot of options and a lot of different lakes to go to, as long as you can get on them. As long as there's a public access to get on them, there's a lot of places that you can go. How do you think it's going to look? We got some weird weather before the weekend here. Do you think these storms are going to throw the fishing off a little bit here for the opener?
It could. It could. It depends. I don't know. I think that what is we as human beings? What do? We eat. We got to eat. To survive, we have to eat something. Maybe we don't eat as much one day over the other, but we have to eat. And wildlife's the same way. And fish are the same way. Sure, there's fronts and storms that come through that can really knock the fishing for a day or so, but I think it just limits their, it limits their feeding cycle. But they got to eat, and I think right now, I think with the fish either in the spawn or really in post spawn on some of the lakes, I think that the fishing's still going to be good with the storm, even with the storms passing. It might be better Sunday, Monday rather than Saturday, but I still think Saturday is going to be pretty darn good. They're going to be shallow, and I'm excited about it.
Now you're up in that Grand Rapids area, or Winnie, Leech, Cass. Where do you think we're at with the late spring when it comes to the spawn? And then how are the water levels? Are you guys pretty high up there?
Yes. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're high, and we need it. I'll tell you, when you talked about accessibility to lakes last summer and fall, it was brutal. I mean, there was a lot of lakes we couldn't get into. Now, if you got a boat, if you got an 18-foot boat or even 17 and bigger, it was tough. And I was so happy to see the snow this year, and we've got a lot of water right now. I would say Cutfoot, if I was guessing, is probably up about 16 to 18 inches over last fall. And that's pretty significant. And I'm just guessing when I looked at the water level, so it might be even a little higher than that. But it was so low last year, it made getting out on all our lakes in the area really tough.
Well, the Governor's Fishing Opener is back. I guess it's been kind of a weird year. Obviously, there's some lingering COVID effects on planning and putting together an official opener. But now there's going to be some media invited and some things going on. And you're taking Governor Walz out. Did you guarantee him a walleye Saturday morning?
Oh, it's hard. I never do that. I never can do that. I can't guarantee anybody.
The politicians do it all the time. Come on, Tom.
Yeah, I know. I have a great opportunity to get him bit, and it's like everything else. Fishing is exactly what it is. It's fishing. So the catching is a bonus, and I'm going to do everything in my power to get him bit. And I just hopefully we can get on a few fish and catch them. Sure. I mean, I think. I think it's a challenge to me. There's a little bit of pressure on me to do it, but you know what, when you're guiding for as many years as I've been guiding, you have pressure on a lot of your trips. And it's just, to me, I look at this as it's an important client, and my job is to give him the opportunity to catch a fish. That's my job as a guide, and leave everything else somewhere else. Yeah, that's my job.
Well, that I think that would be the hardest part for me, is just to make it just about fishing and not just have at least one little political card, in my back pocket that I want. Hey, maybe you should think about this, on Monday when you're in the office. But you make it about fishing, and you're in the National Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, the Minnesota Fishing Hall of Fame. I'm sure you can keep it just about fishing. I'm sure you've been a part of the Governor's Opener before. Have you taken politicians out, or celebrities, or some other high profile clients before?
Oh yeah, many times. And I've never taken a governor fishing. I have to say, I think I did, but it was so long ago I forgot his name. But no, I've been involved in organizing more than just taking people fishing, with the governor's side. But I've taken a lot of athletes, pro athletes, different high profile people. One of my favorite customers and it was a big time guy, and we fished together for many years, and he still calls me on the phone. But I think, when you look at all my clients, and I don't want it to sound corny, but all my clients are important to me. Every client, I don't care how they put their shoes on or their pants, everyone is important to me. I treat everybody the same, no matter who they are and who they come from or where they come from. And that's probably why I've been successful, is what I did, because my clients know that every one of them is special.
Did any of them ever surprise you? Like, wow, this person knows how to catch fish. Yeah, some do. I mean, some will surprise you that they're better fishermen than you anticipated. But, sometimes a lot of guys this last probably, I would say 15 years, have brought their wives with them, because they don't have the patience and they don't want to try to teach the wife how to fish, but they want her as their partner to be able to fish. So they bring them to me and I teach them. Well, some of these gals have become pretty darn good fishermen. And it surprises me sometimes, but they listen a little bit better than the male occupants. So. Well, are you going to take the governor out at midnight, or is it just going to be an early morning on Saturday? No,
it's going to be an early morning deal.
Do you ever do the midnight thing anymore?
No. No, that was back in the day, and I always remember a statement from Al Linder. He said, "The fish will bite when you get to them. When you find them, they'll be there. It doesn't matter the time of day." And I think that's part of it. And I think that they have a process of what they do now. They don't have to go out at midnight. Yeah. I mean, just to be a true Minnesotan and say, "Hey, I went out at midnight." Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. Did you get bit? No, never had a bite. Well, that's because they probably didn't bite at night. So,
I mean, I like the idea of it, but yeah, maybe 20 years ago or whatever, just to do it just to say you did it. But it's just so much easier when you do it when it's light out.
Well, you can see.
You can see. Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of Linders, you're from Illinois originally?
I'm from Chicago, yes.
And then, did you know them when you were in Illinois, Al and Ron?
I met Al. And Dave Sanda from In Fisherman. I met them. I knew Dave before I knew Al, but I met them all in the 70s, late 70s. And Al and I have been friends. Oh God, we've been friends for 35 years. Very, very close friends. And I think, I owe a lot. I would say Al has been one of the biggest mentors in my life in fishing, and great people. But the thing about people from Chicago and Illinois, that why they're such good fishermen, is because they just don't have any fish to catch there. so they have to be very good at it in order to get bit. So then when you move up here, it's like utopia. It's like the promised land. And I think that's why we were such good fishermen, because we just didn't have much to catch. So we had to be very good at it.
So you moved to Grand Rapids then from Chicago. Did you know? I mean, did you do it for to work with Lindners, or was that just a byproduct of moving up here?
Oh, I think it's a byproduct. I got a deputy sheriff's job up here, but I was guiding on Lake Geneva in southern Wisconsin for a couple of years before I moved up here. But a friend of mine had moved here he had originally lived here and moved back here from Chicago, invited me up, and I fell in love with it. And the fishing was off the charts, but it was the country and the people. And I just thought, this is where I want to live. This is a place I want to be. And I think that's what kind of drove me here. I took a year off and fished every day off I had, and I fished about a dozen lakes, learned them, and then I hung the shingle out and started guiding. I think it was in 1980, and it's been a run ever since.
So you were in law enforcement. Did you do that in Chicago?
Yes.
Oof. Oh boy. How was that?
Well, it was different. I could tell you that. I had a tough job there. I was a narcotics investigator. I worked some really tough jobs down there. And I think, I got shot up pretty bad in 1971, and I recovered from that. And after that, I got promoted to investigator. And then after a few years doing that, it's just like in your mind, you want to go to somewhere where you feel comfortable, where you feel that you can make a difference. And I think my whole fishing career, even when it started, I never thought about that. But as time went on, I think that's who I am, as I've always wanted to make a difference in the fishing community. And I think it was taught to me very well by the Lindners, and I'm a byproduct of that. So it's been fun. I wouldn't trade places with anybody. I wouldn't. I love my life, and I love my job.
We'll keep it on the fishing side. So for anybody else that's going to be heading out on Saturday morning, what advice would you give them?
Well, I think the fish are going to be shallow on most of the lakes. I think at times we kind of throw it into a bag of tricks and say, oh yeah, you got to fish shallow. That's the only way you're going to get bit. Pay attention to your weather. If the water starts warming up too quick for you, then you need to drop off a little bit. You need to go out to that 14, even as deep as 20 feet. If they're done spawning, and they've been done spawning for 2 weeks or so, those fish are going to drop down. The males will stick around. But right now, I would say up where I'm going to probably be fishing 6 to 12 feet. Right along the areas of spawning, spots that I know that the fish have used for spawning. Even on the north end of Lake Winnie and the west side of Winnie, I would fish even as shallow as 4 feet up there, because you're going to be fishing mostly males. But I think on most of the lakes, in the whole northern region, I think, what did somebody teach me one time? Where are the fish? They're shallow, deep, or in between. I think I would start shallow, and if you're not getting bit, keep coming out a little bit. Keep moving out. 4 to 5 to 6 feet at a crack, and eventually you're going to find them, and they're going to be active. They're going to be chewing. They want to eat. They've gone through the spawning ritual, or they're in the middle of it, and they do want to eat. But if you're after a trophy fish, I would say another couple of weeks would probably be your the best way to approach that. But, if you want to get bit, stay shallow. And then, like I say, if you're not getting bit, keep moving out a little bit. But, kind of look for rock and rubble. If there's any existing weeds coming up or old weed beds, kind of stay on the outside edges of those. And jig and minnow is the deal. I'm definitely confident if you fish a jig and minnow in these areas, you're going to get bit. Can you fish a slip bobber and a leech? Water's a little cold right now. I would kind of stay away from that for another week or two for sure till it warms up. But I think trolling crankbaits at night, in the evening or early in the morning, I'm sure that'll work a little bit for you too. But jig and minnow is going to be that's my go-to bait right now.
Well, I'm looking forward to putting a few in the live well. It's so hard because I love to eat fish and I love to eat walleye, but I'm also a big proponent of sustainability and protecting our resource. So it's always a conflicting message when I say I'm looking forward to a fish fry. But I think what you alluded to earlier is keeping a couple to eat. You don't have to keep limits. You don't have to go out there and get everybody's limit in the boat. I don't need to eat 4 fish. I can go back out and catch more if I want to eat some more. So I'm looking forward to having some fish and just having a good opener. I've been looking forward to this day for a long time. So I wish you well. Wish you good luck on Saturday. Good luck with the governor. And I'll leave you with this one last question of what do you think the future of fishing in Minnesota looks like?
Oh, I think it's very strong. I think, when you get a group even like Minfish that's helping to keep things on track, but I think people are starting to get more interested on the future of fishing. Limits aren't the most important thing to them in the world. Is just exactly what you said, Bret. Keep enough to eat. Keep a few fish to eat. And then you can go back out another time. Now, sometimes you get this controversy about, well, I'm from Illinois or I'm from Iowa and I want to take a limit home. Well, eat some fish up here and take a few home, but don't think that you have to crash the freezer with limits of fish all the time when you're either living here or you're a tourist. So I think, leaving some, taking some, and we're going to ensure that there's going to be fish forever, in our lifetimes anyway. And I think conserving fish right now is going to be a real challenge for some people, but it's something that they have to think about. So it was a great point, Bret. Keep a couple nice meal to eat, and you know what? If you need some more, go back out and catch them.
That's
and
right.
You'll get a few more. So, okay.
You betcha. All right, Tom Neustrom, Minnesota Fishing Connections. It's mnfishingconnections.com, right?
That's correct.
mnfishingconnections.com. Tom, good luck on Saturday. Thanks for the time today on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it very much. Thanks.
Did you know there are more than 1,000 lakes in Otter Tail County?
Yep, and I'm gonna fish as many as I can. I'm an outdoorsy otter. Nothing beats a full day of fishing for me. The lakes of Otter Tail County give me plenty of options to lower my boat and snag the perfect catch. Not an outdoorsy otter? No problem. Otter Tail County has something for everyone. You just need to find your inner otter.
To find your inner otter, go to OtterTailLakesCountry.com. Well, it's time to head up to Lake of the Woods and check in with Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism as we gear up for the big old fishing opener in Minnesota. And Joe, it sounds like you were just up there at Lake of the Woods kind of checking things out and getting ready for the opener. How are things looking up at Lake of the Woods?
They're looking good. They're looking real good. So conditions, we got high water in the Rainy River. So a couple of our accesses upriver are a little bit flooded. I was at the Wheelers, or the access I think in Bret is just fine, and the one at the Wheelers Point boat ramp, which is one of the main ones at the mouth of the Rainy River, that's great, and our other ramps are great. So we'll be in good shape that way. I was on many of the resort's docks, and I tell you, that water's getting close to those docks, but it's just fine still, luckily. And there's been some dock damage by some of the ice this year because of the high water and the high current in the Rainy River. But that's getting the ice and stuff is out of the Rainy River now. And, actually there's been a lot of ice melting on Lake of the Woods, and I just saw a satellite view. I was on the water yesterday or on the shoreline anyway. And, almost as far as you can see, it was open water. You could see some ice out there. And of course the satellite view confirmed that I would say right now, about 25% of the lake is ice free. So depending upon the winds and things like that, it's going to be good fishing for the opener. There's going to be plenty of water to fish, whether you're fishing the Rainy River, fishing, one of the bays, fishing adjacent to the South Shore, or even up at the Northwest Angle. I mean, I saw some videos today of people running their boats up at the Northwest Angle because, the vast majority of ice has gone away now. So there's spots to fish, and Bret, it should be good. I mean, this is post-spawn. This is a Minnesota fishing opener, and people are going to be out there catching walleyes and saugers on jigs, mark my words.
I know a lot of people are excited to see the lake opening up, and I've been seeing images, that satellite image. I think I've seen updates just about every day this past week as people are excited to go out there. What's it when the water is real high? What's it like going through that gap area?
Oh, it's just easier. I mean, because, the water's flowing through and they're really good and there's more water. So, when you go through that gap, and what the gap is for people that don't know is it's where the Rainy River runs. in between Pine Island and Sable Island, and it's kind of a neck down area, and it's all buoyed up, so you know where to go. The charter boats go through there and everything, and that's kind of the main gap to go into Big Lake of the Woods, Big Traverse Bay. So when you go through there with more water, it's actually easier, because when you're going through that gap, the biggest hazard you have is not staying in the channel and hitting one of the sandbars on either side of the bank. So actually going through there is just fine, and it's deep water and it's flowing pretty good through there. But I tell you, consequently, that's going to be a pretty darn good fishing spot come opening day.
Oh boy, I bet it is, and probably all along that South Shore. I bet that'll be pretty good. Now the whole thing. I
should tell you too that another thing that's kind of interesting is the northern pike fishing. I mean, Zipple Bay had their northern pike tournament this past weekend, and I'll tell you what, just to give you an idea what kind of pike fishing. Remember, pike fishing is open year round up on Lake of the Woods because we're border water, and those pike are still in bays. Even for the Minnesota fishing opener, there's going to be pike in those bays. And out of that Zipple Bay tournament, they caught 27 pike over 40 inches. Now, a 40-inch pike is a world-class pike, and they got 27 of them, and many, many pike just below 40 inches. So there's also another nice opportunity, I think, for people. If you come up for the opener, hey, jump out on Friday and get one of the bays and do a little trolling or casting, and kind of a fun deal.
That's a Zipple Bay tournament? Is that basically open to all Lake of the Woods waters?
No, it's open to Zipple Bay.
Just Zipple Bay?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Yep. And they caught 27 over 40 just in Zipple Bay there.
In the 2-day tournament, yeah. So, wow. And they were doing, some people were using dead baits, just kind of setting dead baits either on the bottom or just in the middle of the water column in shallow water, or they were casting spoons, they were trolling cranks. They're getting them a number of different ways, but the bottom line is, I mean, we had a big meeting with. I have a resort stakeholder meeting. I call it every year, one on the south end and one at the northwest angle, and we're fortunate enough to have really good partnerships with many of our stakeholders, including, DNR Fisheries, DNR Enforcement, DNR Wildlife, DNR Parks, U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Customs, Border Protection, gosh, who am I forgetting? The sheriff. We've got some county commissioners that come. We've got some legislative folks that come. And you can see it's a whole big hodgepodge where everybody gets to hear everybody else. When we go up to the northwest angle, we include our friends from Canada Border Services, and the Canadian Consulate's office and things like that. So anyway, we had this meeting, and DNR Fisheries kind of gave a state of the lake report. And every few years, they do netting and things for pike. And they said that they want to have, gosh, if I remember the numbers correct, I think it's like, they want to have like 3% of the pike over 40 inches. And right now there's like 7 to 9% of the pike that are over 40 inches in their test netting. I mean, no, just some really good numbers. And it's funny because pike don't get much love other than March. March is when, everybody does tip-ups and such. But, in April right now, they get a little bit of attention. Other than that, people are catching pike by accident if they're walleye fishing or something. It's amazing. But, really, and I haven't done it enough, but I even think to myself in the summer, I'll talk to a buddy who knows the fishery pretty well. He's like, just for fun, we went trolling in one of the bays with crankbaits, and oh my gosh, did we catch the pike? What a fun day. Or if it's a below day, or you just want to mix it up or something, and I'll tell you, you'd be surprised. When you go on a milk run and go casting shorelines for pike and stuff, how you'll pick up walleyes, you'll pick up smallmouth. It's kind of a fun day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my first 40-inch pike that I ever caught was on Lake of the Woods, and granted, it was the Canadian side, but it, same body of water, and I got kind of excited about that, and I want to make a summer trip to the Northwest Angle this year, and I want to do a little bit more fishing, a little different fishing that I've been normally doing up at Lake of the Woods. So might have to try to cast some windy points or cast some shorelines and chase some of those big pike around up there a little bit this year.
I got to tell you too, Bret, back, probably 10 years ago now, when Rapala first introduced their scatter wrap, which is a crankbait with a rounded bill and it kicks off to the side and stuff. It's a good crank even today. We hosted what was called the Scatter Wrap Challenge, and we did a big media event, and all we could use was were scatter wraps. And oftentimes we were just doing shorelines and just casting shorelines. And what was amazing to me is, Lake of the Woods, it's 1 million acres of water if you include the Canadian and U.S. side together. It's got over 14,552 islands, and there's over 65,000 miles of shoreline. So when you start casting shorelines, it's amazing how many little nuances that you see that you never would have seen. Underwater points, shelves, different kind of weeds, bays. There's so much, and the fish we caught adjacent to shoreline. I think that it rings a bell to me is that, not every fish in the system is doing the same thing. You might have a lot of walleyes sitting over deep mud. You might have some walleyes on this wind-blown point, but you also have walleyes that are shallow related, and they, you got fish all over the darn place. So it really was quite interesting. I think just doing that. That was fun. It was just casting shorelines with that scatter wrap. Really a fun deal.
Well, I'm looking forward to the opener. I'm looking forward to getting back up to Lake of the Woods. And if people want to get up there yet this weekend or plan a trip this summer to get up there to Lake of the Woods, what should they do, Joe?
Yeah, you know what? Here, our Facebook or Instagram pages, Lake of the Woods Tourism. Hey, otherwise, our website has a source of information for you, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Northern Minnesota's Walleye Factory is a year-round world-class fishing destination. The perfect getaway this summer is just a short drive to Lake of the Woods. Fish Big Traverse Bay, the Rainy River, or visit the unique Northwest Angle. To catch big fish, you have to go where the big fish are. Plan your trip to Lake of the Woods at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. That's lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties.
All in the palm of your hand. The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we are excited to go fishing with the fishing opener here this weekend. And whether or not the walleyes are biting, it sounds like panfish are starting to heat up. And Erik Osberg from Otter Tail Lakes Country joins us now. And Erik, you sent me a couple pictures the other day. Sounds like you were on the fish.
We were. I turned to Willie at one point and said, I think this might be the best crappie bite I've ever been on in my life. And he didn't believe it. He was like, well, I don't know. I'm like, what? But it was, so we left the house at 6 p.m. and we got on the water about 6:30. We caught our first fish at set. I looked back at the pictures, right? Like it has the data, right? Like it was 6:59. And for an hour and a half, we were spot locked, casting into a spot, and it was one after another, blind. We couldn't, we weren't sight fishing. There you go. We weren't sight fishing or anything. And it was an hour and a half of, if you went 2 casts and you didn't get a bite, you felt like something had changed. But it was doubles, and it'd be, it was, and they were all big fish. Even, like the biggest was 14 and a half. And even the ones that weren't 14 and a half, they were still 12, 13. They were just big, huge, thick crappies. And Willie got a surprise bluegill in the mix. All artificial bait. Didn't have a single minnow in the boat. Willie was using it's called a tough tube from Northland Fish and Tackle, and then I was using just a 16th ounce jig with it's called a Joker. It's a plastic. I think Strike King makes them, and it was just lights out. It was hour and a half of steady big crappies.
Dang, was it shallow? Did you say how deep it was?
I didn't say. It was about 7 feet of water. So it wasn't way up shallow, and it wasn't. It was the what the fish were relating to is there was a river nearby, a river mouth, and we weren't like close to the river mouth. It was just, the river mouth was over there, but there was enough running water. There was a little bit of current in the lake, right? Like we had the spot lock, and if you looked in the water, it kind of looked like we were moving, but we weren't. We were just, spot locked. So they were relating to, I think, the warm water. The for whatever reason, there was warmer water right there than there was other places, and so they were relating to that. 7 feet of water. Water temp was 52 to 55, and and they were all. The crazy thing is they were all like. I asked at one point, I'm like, how many fish possibly could? Yeah, there's the video off of the old Instagram, and yeah, it was how many fish could possibly be in that area, and that's a big crappie. That's a big, huge crappie. So
yeah,
yeah. So it was a magical Tuesday night in Otter Tail County.
When he reached for it, it almost looks like a largemouth when he thumbs it right there.
Yeah. They were freakishly big. And again, it wasn't just the length. Their side, their shoulders, their sides. They were tall. Yeah, you'd set the hook, and it didn't feel like you were crappie fishing after you set the hook. So it was a good time.
Now, were you running slip bobbers, or were you just kind of dragging the jig back, or what were you doing with those jigs?
So Willie was using a bobber, and I use a clip bobber. It's just an old school spring, whatever, right? Because you're really only setting the, we're in 7 feet of water, and then you set the depth at like 4 feet, and so that the reason I don't know why I do that is so I can take it on and off, and I don't have a bobber stop left on my line. But so Willie was using a float, a little clip spring bobber, and you could adjust it 3 feet down, 4 feet down. And then I was tossing that jig and letting it sink to the bottom. And there was many times where it never got to the bottom. And same with Willie's bobber. He would cast it and the bobber was laying on its side, and then it would start to go up, and then it would just go down into the water. It was just
awesome.
It was that fat, then we missed, I'll bet we missed, half as many fish as we caught, but it was kind of silly.
Man, that's fun when you just time it just right. And I don't know, we got the big storms here. I don't know if sometimes they get fired up before a big storm like that, or if it just the water temp hit or whatever. They were just in that mood. That's fun when you hit it just right like that. And it'll be interesting to see for the walleye anglers this weekend what they're going to run into. For all the years that I've been going out on walleye opener, particularly on these governor's openers when we've been out and around and chasing different fish around on different bodies of water, I feel like almost every year the walleye opener turns into a crappie fishing day, which isn't bad, but sometimes it's the walleyes just aren't ready, or they're post spawn and a little tough to find, or it's cold. The weather isn't really cooperating.
Right. Yeah. Well, the air temperatures look like they're going to be pretty high up there, right? Like the air temp is going to be warm.
73. Yeah.
Yeah. So that should be fine. You never know until you put boots on the ground. So sorry, my kid is hopping. My daughter, Leah.
Oh no! You're back. That's funny. Oh, you got a camera person now.
Yeah, so you never know until you put boots on the ground, right? Like I'm gonna go out at midnight and I'll do what I do, and I'll try to cover water with cranks and look shallow first, and then if they're not there, then I'll work my way out deeper. So
you're going out at midnight?
Yeah, well, and I'll probably go, I'll launch the boat at 10:30ish, and there's no rule against driving around and looking, right? Like, just I won't have a line in the water, but just to see, again, can I find warmer water? Like if you just drove around for an hour and it'll be dark, so you can't look in the water. But if you drove around and you looked to see if you could find where, there's a weed pile right here, or there's a whatever right here, or you know what I'm saying? Like recon, right? Like get some information, scouting. and then scouting, and then at midnight you drop the line in the water, and hopefully you figure something out.
Well, I'll be honest. I guess last year, that was last year. I was at Dead Lake, right, when we were out there. Yep. up in your neck of the woods. Weather was beautiful. I mean, she was a little brisk in the morning, but it was dead calm, clear skies, and it ended up being a beautiful day out there. So I think I know Friday is looking pretty good for weather, and I think Saturday should be a pretty nice day too.
Well, and the good news is, we'll be back. We're back in the game, right? Like that's the best news is we, for those of us who fish inland in Minnesota, we haven't been able to target walleyes. I tell you what, Willie's most excited about bass. He's chomping at the bit. He's going to get up early. He's going to go out bass fishing. So if you're a catch and release bass person, don't forget that catch and release bass opens on Saturday as well. So the walleyes are the most popular, but sometimes, like you mentioned, they turn into crappie fishing trips. Well, they could turn into a bass fishing trip too.
Did you time this so you could just give us a tour of downtown?
Yeah, exactly. This is downtown Wadena. Right there is the Boondocks Cafe. They have really good breakfast. Yeah, we could give you a tour of downtown Wadena. There's a brewery right up here called Drastic Measures. They also serve pizza. So this is downtown Wadena.
That's great. Well, I was born not too far from there, down the highway over in Staples. But it's been a few years since I've been back there, so I might have to go back there, maybe have some food at Boondocks there, and then maybe stop over at the brewery afterwards. All right.
And then we should go fishing.
We should, and we should try to do that. I would like to get up there and try to chase some of those big crappies around before the bite ends. So let's talk off the air about make some plans and see if we can't get up there. So
we'll get it done.
Erik, if people want to learn more about Otter Tail Lakes Country, what should they do?
They can find their inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.